My father died, and relatives who ignored me for years came begging. Then my father's widow's daughter insulted my brother. I let her finish, before saying, "Good. Now watch me decide who gets everything." The will was read 6 weeks after my father's funeral. By then, the family had already started circling. My father, Bernard, had spent his life making money and making sure everyone knew he had it. He owned properties, investments, cars, artwork, and enough expensive things to make people assume his fortune would last forever. Whether it actually would was another question. He spent almost as aggressively as he earned, and nobody knew how much debt might be hiding behind everything he owned. Bernard liked being admired. He liked relatives asking him for help because it gave him the opportunity to remind them that he was the successful one. His generosity usually came with a speech. Sometimes it came with humiliation. He had not been a good father. He could be charming in front of strangers, but inside the family, affection depended on obedience. Praise disappeared the moment someone disappointed him. My older brother, Mason, disappointed him often. At least, that was how our father told the story. Mason had made financial mistakes. He had changed direction more than once and spent years living from one paycheck to the next. Instead of helping him recover, Bernard treated every mistake as proof that Mason would never amount to anything. I handled our father differently. I learned not to argue. When Bernard wanted control, resistance only made him push harder. I built my own life, answered his calls when I could tolerate them, and stayed far away from the rest of the family. They made that easy. Several relatives had criticized nearly every decision I made when I was younger. They discussed my private life, exaggerated my mistakes, and accused me of being dramatic whenever I defended myself. Once I stopped attending family gatherings, almost none of them checked on me. Then Bernard died. Suddenly, everyone remembered my number. Before the will had even been located, Mason and I were receiving messages about Bernard's plans for the family. Nobody wanted to ask directly how much money was left, so they used softer phrases. They wanted to know whether we were protecting his legacy. They wondered whether his properties would remain in the family. They offered to help us understand what Bernard would have wanted. One cousin asked if the vacation property would still be available for family use. At that point, we had not even confirmed that Bernard still owned it. Mason removed one of our father's laptops from the house with the estate lawyer's permission. It contained financial documents and property records that needed to be reviewed. Within a day, 3 relatives accused him of stealing it. The laptop was worth almost nothing compared to the estate, but they spoke as though Mason had carried a safe out through the front door. He tried to laugh about it. "They think I'm taking everything," he said. "You're his son. So are you. They don't think I'm getting anything." "Why?" "Because they still think Dad saw me as a child." Mason looked at me. He did. Bernard never fully accepted that I had become someone he could not control. Apparently, neither had the rest of the family. The final will was eventually found at his lawyer's office. It had been signed correctly, witnessed, and reviewed long before his death. The reading took place in a plain conference room. Mason sat beside me. Across the table was Bernard's widow, Lorna, along with her adult daughter, Kylie. Lorna looked exhausted. Kylie looked inconvenienced. She kept checking her phone while Vera, the estate lawyer, explained the first section. Several assets had been assigned directly. Lorna would receive the home she had shared with Bernard, a protected financial allocation, and several personal belongings. Mason would receive specific keepsakes, including our father's watch and one of his vehicles. Then Vera reached the remaining estate. She adjusted the documents in front of her. "The remaining assets will be administered through a discretionary testamentary trust." Kylie put down her phone. Vera explained that the trust listed a group of potential beneficiaries. Several relatives were guaranteed minimum distributions, but anything beyond those amounts would be decided by the trustee. Mason leaned toward me. "Who's the trustee?" Vera looked directly at me. "Audrey is." I stared back at her. "I'm what?" "You have been appointed executor of the estate and trustee of the testamentary trust." Silence settled over the room. Mason blinked. Lorna looked confused. Kylie did not hide her reaction. "Her?" Vera turned toward her. "Yes. But why?" "That is not explained in the will." Kylie looked at her mother as if Lorna might correct the lawyer. Lorna lowered her eyes to the papers. I asked Vera to explain exactly what Bernard had given me the power to do. She made one thing clear immediately. Being executor did not mean I could take whatever I wanted. I had legal duties. Every major decision had to be made in good faith, supported by records, and consistent with the trust. Assets needed proper valuations. Sales had to be commercially reasonable. Mandatory distributions could not be withheld because I disliked someone. Anyone who believed I had acted dishonestly could ask a court to review my decisions. But after the fixed gifts and minimum amounts were handled, I had broad discretion over the rest. I could increase certain beneficiary shares. I could choose not to increase others. I could also distribute a substantial portion to approved charities. By the time Vera finished explaining, Kylie's expression had changed. She had entered the room acting as though Lorna would control the estate. Now she understood that I would be making most of the decisions. I still don't know why Bernard chose me. Maybe he trusted my judgment more than he ever admitted. Maybe he knew Mason would avoid the conflict. Or perhaps he imagined the chaos his decision would cause and considered it one final form of entertainment. Bernard loved watching people reveal themselves. If that was his intention, it worked. My phone rang before Mason and I reached the parking area. The first call came from my Aunt Darlene. We had not spoken in almost 9 years. "Audrey," she said softly. "I've been meaning to call. For 9 years." There was a pause. "This is a difficult time. I thought you might need support. My father died 6 weeks ago." "I know. I didn't want to intrude. But you're calling now. I heard the will was finally read." Of course she had. News traveled quickly when money was involved. Darlene asked whether I felt overwhelmed. Then she explained that dividing a large estate could be difficult for someone who no longer understood the family's needs. "What do you mean? You've been away for a long time. You might not know who is struggling." "And you do." "I've remained involved." Darlene's version of involvement usually meant discussing people behind their backs. She told me Bernard's surviving siblings had supported him before he became wealthy. I asked how. She mentioned sacrifices without naming one. When I pressed for an example, she accused me of turning the conversation into an interrogation. Then she offered to meet with me and my uncles to create a fair distribution plan. "What would you consider fair?" I asked. "Bernard's siblings should be treated with respect." "How much respect?" "Audrey, I'm asking for a number." She refused to give one. Instead, she explained that one of her children had debt, another wanted a house, and her grandchildren would eventually need help with school. By the end of the call, she had listed every reason her side of the family deserved more without directly asking me for money. When I hung up, I had several missed calls. The same pattern continued for days. Relatives sent me old photographs as proof that we had once been close. One cousin found a picture from a birthday party when I was 12. "We've always had a special bond," she wrote. We had not spoken in more than a decade. Another relative claimed she had always defended me when people criticized me. I remembered her sitting silently while Darlene called me selfish and ungrateful. When I mentioned that, she told me I was remembering the situation incorrectly. The past mattered when they needed evidence that we were family. It became irrelevant when I remembered how they treated me. Mason received calls too, although most relatives quickly realized I was the better target. "They don't want to talk to me," he said. "They want information." "Then stop answering. They'll say I'm hiding something. They're going to say that anyway." He smiled without humor. "You sound like Dad." The comparison landed harder than he intended. "I'm not trying to. I know." The estate inventory took months. Bernard had spread his assets across several accounts, properties, storage facilities, and companies. Every item had to be verified before it could be valued. The uncertainty did not stop our relatives from selecting what they wanted. Darlene wanted part of a holiday property she had never visited. My Uncle Byron wanted a coastal cottage because he claimed it carried deep family meaning. A cousin requested a painting she remembered from childhood. When I asked her to describe it, she described the wrong one. I recorded every request without making promises. Vera advised me to remain neutral until the estate had been fully valued. The extended family interpreted my silence as weakness. Kylie treated it like permission. She had no official role in the estate, but she continued appearing whenever Mason helped sort Bernard's belongings. Lorna rarely stopped her. I don't think Lorna agreed with her daughter. She had simply spent years surviving stronger personalities by staying quiet. One afternoon, Mason was sorting through a cabinet containing documents, watches, and personal items. He picked up the watch assigned to him in the will. Kylie stepped into the room. You're not taking that. Mason looked at her. It belongs to me. According to who? The will. You barely visited him. Mason glanced at the watch. He asked me not to visit. That's not what he told us. I was standing in the hallway, close enough to hear everything. Kylie folded her arms. Bernard said you were terrible with money. He said a lot of things. He said you only called when you needed something. That isn't true. I lived here. I know what he thought of you. Mason noticed me in the doorway. His expression told me to let it go. Kylie kept talking. You should be grateful you're getting a car. Honestly, you'll be lucky if you receive anything else. I walked into the room. Kylie. She turned. What? You're finished. I'm talking to him. You're insulting him while he collects something the will specifically gave him. I'm protecting my mother. From a watch. From people taking advantage of her. Mason stepped away from the cabinet. Audrey, leave it. No. Kylie laughed. You don't control me. No. But I control who is allowed to interfere with the estate inventory. Her smile faded. If you disrupt this process again, Vera will require you to leave while estate property is being handled. My mother owns this house now. Your mother does. You don't. Lorna appeared at the end of the hallway. Kylie, please stop. Kylie turned toward her. I'm the only one looking out for you. Lorna's voice remained quiet. That watch belongs to Mason. Kylie looked at all of us before facing him again. You still don't deserve it. I let her finish. Then I said, good. Now watch me decide who gets everything. The statement was more emotional than legal. I could not literally distribute every dollar however I pleased. The will and trust still controlled the process. But Kylie understood what I meant. She had spent weeks treating Mason like a beggar because she assumed she would eventually benefit from the estate. I wanted her to understand that cruelty would not improve her position. She left the room without another word. Mason picked up the watch. You didn't need to do that. Yes, I did. She'll make things worse. She was already making things worse. He turned the watch over in his hand. I don't want everyone thinking you gave me special treatment because I'm your brother. You are one of the main beneficiaries. That doesn't mean I deserve more. That decision isn't yours. He looked at me. Then whose is it? Despite everything, I nearly laughed. Apparently mine. When the inventory was finally complete, I met with Vera, an independent financial advisor, a tax specialist, and another lawyer who reviewed the trust separately. The estate contained several properties, investment accounts, vehicles, motorcycles, valuable artwork, and expensive personal belongings. Keeping the properties would create years of expenses and arguments. Taxes, insurance, maintenance, and access would become everyone's problem. Distributing individual assets would create disputes over value. If Byron received a property that later sold for more than expected, Darlene would claim he had been favored. If one cousin received artwork that increased in value, another would question the appraisal. What is the cleanest option? I asked Vera. Sell the non-specific assets and distribute cash. Can I do that even if relatives requested certain properties? A request is not a legal right. What about Byron's claim that the coastal cottage belongs to the family? It belonged to Bernard. It now belongs to the estate. The properties were appraised and listed through independent agents. The investments were liquidated carefully rather than dumped all at once. Most of the vehicles were sold. The artwork went through professionals who documented the process. I kept every valuation, offer, contract, and receipt. Nobody connected to the family received special treatment. Byron discovered the coastal cottage had been listed before I told him personally. He called furious. You put it on the market? Yes. That property was supposed to stay in the family. Where does the will say that? You know what Bernard wanted. If he wanted you to have it, he could have named you. He trusted you to do the right thing. I'm selling it at market value. That is the right thing for the estate. You don't understand the history attached to that place. How many times have you stayed there? That isn't relevant. Once. He changed direction. If you insist on selling, you should list it through me. Byron worked in real estate. The concern about family history disappeared the moment commission entered the conversation. I hired someone independent. You could have trusted me. We haven't spoken in years. I'm your uncle. That doesn't make you independent. He called me disrespectful and accused me of erasing Bernard's legacy. Then he said I was enjoying the power. That accusation stayed with me because it was not entirely wrong. I hated the paperwork, the pressure, and the constant fear that one small mistake might lead to years of legal trouble. But I did enjoy refusing to be intimidated. For most of my life, relatives like Byron had spoken to me as though age and family status gave them authority. Now they had to ask. That made me uncomfortable enough to become even more careful. I documented every decision as though a judge might one day read my explanation. When the estimated value of the estate became clear, I began designing the distributions. Lorna's core inheritance was already protected by the will. I increased her share through the trust until she would receive roughly 1/3 of the final net estate. Some relatives called her a trophy wife and claimed she only married Bernard for his money. I saw something different. Lorna continued earning her own income after marrying him, even though she no longer needed to. She once told me that having money she had earned herself made her feel safe. Before Bernard, she had spent years with a husband who used finances to control her. I wanted her to have security that nobody could take away. Mason would receive approximately 1/4. That decision required more thought. His history with money was not good, and some relatives would use that to argue he should receive less. Bernard probably would have agreed with them. But reducing Mason's inheritance because he had struggled would only continue our father's punishment. I wanted him to have a genuine opportunity to change his life. I planned to recommend a protected financial structure, but the final decision would remain his. I was his sister. I would not become another person controlling him for his own supposed benefit. My personal distribution was significantly smaller. It was still enough to make my life easier, but far below what I could have justified under the trust. The estate covered its legitimate legal, tax, appraisal, and administrative expenses before any final distributions were made. I also waived the compensation I was entitled to request for serving as executor. Then I reached the extended family. Simon, the uncle who had stayed away from the conflict, received a meaningful amount. He never demanded property or asked what the estate was worth. After the funeral, he sent one message. "I'm sorry you're handling this. Let me know if you need any documents from me." That was all. His allocation was quietly increased above the required minimum. Darlene received the amount guaranteed to her and a modest addition. It was nowhere near what she expected. The trust also made a charitable contribution to an addiction recovery organization. The donation was not publicized or presented as Darlene's personal gift. The connection existed only in my own mind. Byron received the required minimum and a small discretionary addition. Another charitable contribution went to an organization helping women rebuild their lives. Years earlier, Byron had offered to handle a financial matter for me because he did not think I should worry my pretty head about complicated numbers. Supporting women who had been underestimated felt like a better use of the money than increasing a share. The cousins received varying amounts based on their documented circumstances. Those supporting dependent children received slightly more through their own distributions. The children were not treated as direct beneficiaries. Carla, one of my cousins, had once withheld meals from her daughters as punishment for poor grades. Years earlier, I found the girls hiding food in their bedroom. When I gave them dinner, Carla accused me of interfering with her parenting. The family told me I should have stayed out of it. That incident was one of the reasons I eventually stayed out of their lives altogether. Carla received what she was legally entitled to, along with a modest amount based on her dependence. A separate donation went to a child advocacy organization. Nora, another cousin, was married to a police officer who enjoyed joking about using his position to frighten people. She received her proper allocation. The trust also supported a legal organization that helped people understand their rights when dealing with authorities. Other donations went to animal welfare groups, refugee assistance programs, and emergency housing services. Then there was Kylie. Kylie had started referring to Bernard as her father after he died. Socially, she was free to describe their relationship however she wanted. Legally, he was not her parent. He had never adopted her. She was not his biological daughter. Bernard had not named her individually in the will, and she was not included among the trust's beneficiaries. Vera confirmed it more than once. Kylie has no direct entitlement to the estate, she said. What if Lorna gives her money afterward? Once Lorna receives her distribution, it belongs to her. She may give Kylie whatever she chooses. But Kylie receives nothing directly? Correct. I remembered how she spoke to Mason. I also remembered the designer bags she had started posting online and her comments about leaving her old life behind once the inheritance arrived. She was already spending money nobody had promised her. Then she gets nothing. Vera studied me. Your personal feelings cannot be the legal basis. They aren't. She is not a beneficiary. That is the correct basis. Vera sent Kylie a formal letter explaining that she had no beneficiary status, no authority over estate property, and no right to interfere with Mason's access to items specifically assigned to him. The letter contained no insults. It simply removed the authority Kylie had imagined she possessed. The final allocation notices went out shortly afterward. Darlene called first. Reed was sitting with me when the phone rang. I put it on speaker. She began shouting before I could say hello. According to her, I had betrayed the family, disgraced my father, and abused the responsibility he had given me. She insisted Bernard would have been ashamed. That almost made me laugh. He had criticized Darlene openly for most of her adult life. He wanted his family taken care of, she said. He left instructions. I followed them. You followed them in the cruelest way possible. You received more than the will required. Do you understand how little that is compared to the estate? Yes. You think this is funny? No. She accused me of believing I was better than everyone else. I stayed away from you. That is the same thing. Then she began lecturing me about respecting my elders. Reed covered his mouth, trying not to react. When she finally paused, I told her to direct any legal concerns to Vera. You think I won't challenge this? You are free to speak with a lawyer. I will. Then your lawyer can contact mine. I ended the call. My hands shook afterward. For years, Darlene's voice could make me feel like a teenager waiting to be punished. Hanging up reminded me that she had no authority over my life. Simon sent a short message. Thank you. I'm staying out of the rest. Good luck. I later learned that Darlene and Byron had contacted him, assuming I had cheated him too. Simon refused to tell them what he received and stopped answering their calls. Byron sent a formal letter claiming he intended to challenge my administration of the estate. The language sounded threatening. Vera read it twice. Can he remove me? I asked. He can ask a court to review your conduct if he has evidence that you breached your duties. Does he? He says you are inexperienced, emotional, and hostile toward the family. That is his evidence? That is his opinion. She explained that Byron would need to identify actual misconduct. A properly valued property sale was not misconduct. Neither was using independent professionals or refusing to give him more than the trust required. The estate records showed that every transaction had been documented and every conflict of interest avoided. Byron called later that day. His voice was calmer than usual. Audrey, this has gone too far. You sent the letter. I'm protecting my rights. What right did I violate? That is for the lawyers to decide. Then why are you calling me? He paused. I'm giving you a chance to reconsider before the family is damaged beyond repair. We haven't spoken in years. That doesn't mean we aren't family. You only contacted me after the will was read. That is not true. It is. He warned me that I might need the family one day. What would I need you for? I asked. The question stopped him. He quickly said family was not about needing people. I reminded him that he had raised the subject. Then he began talking about loyalty, tradition, and the loneliness of cutting people off. You weren't concerned about my loneliness before there was money involved. That's unfair. No, it's uncomfortable. His voice hardened. You're going to regret humiliating us. I never published your allocation or told anyone what you received. You decided it was humiliating because you expected more. He called me arrogant. I blocked his number. Carla and Nora both sent long messages. Each asked whether our relationship was worth so little to me. I gave them the same answer. We do not have a relationship. Your distribution was not based on pretending that we do. Carla replied that she had always loved me. I remembered her daughters hiding food and did not answer. A few days later, Carla's teenage daughter, Sadie, contacted me privately. She said her mother had been crying, posting accusations online, and telling people I had stolen Bernard's estate. Sadie did not ask me to change anything. She only thought I should know. I thanked her and told her the dispute was not her responsibility. Then I saved screenshots of the public posts and forwarded them to Vera. Another legal letter arrived from a lawyer representing Byron and one of his children. It accused me of using the estate for personal gain and causing emotional harm. Vera sent it to the independent lawyer who had reviewed the trust. He read it and shook his head. Is there anything serious in it? I asked. There are accusations, but no supporting facts. What about emotional harm? Being upset by a lawful distribution is not enough on its own. They need an actual legal cause of action. The lawyer invited them to identify a single unauthorized payment, undervalued sale, missing asset, or violation of the will. They identified nothing. The threats gradually stopped. Lorna attended her final allocation meeting with Trevor, Kylie's husband. She wanted him there because legal documents made her nervous. That did not give him authority over the estate. He read the allocation and immediately began asking questions as though the money belonged to his household. What options do we have if this isn't enough? He asked. Vera looked at Lorna. Are you dissatisfied? Lorna shook her head. No. It is more than I expected. Trevor leaned forward. But what about Kylie? Kylie is not a beneficiary, Vera said. She is Lorna's daughter. That does not create a claim against Bernard's estate. I'm speaking for the family. You are not representing the estate. Unless Lorna has formally appointed you, you are not representing her either. Lorna touched his arm. It's enough. Trevor tried to continue. Lorna stopped him. I said it is enough. She reviewed the documents, confirmed that she understood them, and signed an acknowledgement accepting her allocation. Her signature did not make every future disagreement impossible, but it showed that she had received a proper explanation and had not been pressured into accepting less than she understood. Later, she sent me a message. Thank you for being fair to me. Lorna and I had never been close enough for me to think of her as a mother. But I respected her. I hoped the money gave her something she had never truly possessed before. Security without permission. Kylie sent me one message after receiving Vera's letter. You think you won? I did not reply. There was nothing to discuss. She had made plans around money that had never belonged to her. The person I had not yet told was Mason. He knew about the car, motorcycle, watch, and a few personal belongings. He believed those items were enough. I don't want more, he told me. You haven't seen the final allocation. I'm serious. So am I. I'm bad with money. You've made mistakes. That's the polite version. That doesn't mean you should be denied a future. He looked away. Dad would have given you more. Dad did not make the final distribution. That's obvious. I arranged to meet Mason for lunch and brought the documents Vera had prepared. The folder was 16 pages long. Mason looked at it like I had placed an exam in front of him. What is this? Your distribution paperwork. Can you summarize it? No. You're enjoying this. Read. He sighed and opened the folder. The first section explained the estate and the trust. The next pages covered taxes, transfers, and his options. Halfway through, he looked ready to fall asleep. Keep going, I said. This language is designed to make normal people surrender. It is designed to stop you from saying nobody explained anything. A server brought our food. Neither of us touched it. Mason reached the final pages and stared at the number beside his allocation. Then he looked at me. That's the final value? Yes. He leaned back. I didn't realize there was that much left to divide. My excitement disappeared. What? The estate. After Lorna, the relatives, and the donations. He thought the number on the page was the amount being shared among everyone. Mason read the heading. He looked down. Beneficiary allocation. And the name beneath it? He read his own name. His expression changed. Not dramatically. Mason rarely reacted dramatically to anything. He looked at the number again, then turned back a page as though he expected to find a correction. This is mine. Yes. All of it. Yes. The car and motorcycle too? Those are separate. He stared at me. Are you sure? Several professionals checked it. But why? What do you mean? Why would you give me this much? You are a beneficiary of Dad's estate. He would not have wanted me to have it. He chose me to make the discretionary decisions. That isn't an answer. I took a breath. You spent most of your life being told one mistake proved you could never be trusted again. I'm not continuing that. What if they were right? They weren't. You don't know that. No. I don't know what you'll do. You might make another bad decision. You may waste some of it. That's reassuring. But you deserve the opportunity to build something better. Mason looked down at the documents. That's more money than I thought I'd ever have. His voice was quiet. Then he reached across the table and placed his hand over mine. I started crying. I had stayed composed through the funeral, the accusations, and the legal threats. But when Mason took my hand, everything I had been holding back came out. The server brought tissues. I could barely apologize. Mason stayed quiet and let me cry. I had not cried that hard when Bernard died. Grieving our father had been complicated. There was sadness, but also anger and relief. I mourned the father he could have been as much as the man who had actually died. This felt different. For once, Bernard's money was not being used to control or humiliate Mason. It was giving him choices. When I calmed down, I explained his options. He could take the full amount directly, invest it, or protect most of it in a structure that would provide regular income. I'm not controlling it for you, I said. Good. But speak to the advisor before deciding. Mason thought for a moment. Can I split it? How? Put most of it somewhere I can't ruin it. Then let me keep some money I'm allowed to be stupid with. I laughed. That may be the most responsible thing you've ever said. Don't sound so surprised. What will you do with the stupid portion? I want to travel for a month. Where? New Zealand. I stared at him. Since when? Since always. You've never mentioned it. You never asked. That was Mason. He could quietly carry a dream for years and reveal it over a plate of food he had forgotten to eat. He met with the advisor and eventually chose a structure that protected most of the money while giving him a generous regular income. A smaller amount remained accessible, enough to enjoy his life without risking the rest. He also agreed not to tell the extended family what he received. What will you say if they ask? I said, that I got Dad's watch. You also received a car and motorcycle. I'll say you forced me to take them. That might be the most believable story anyone in this family tells. After that lunch, the rest of the estate felt less important. The charitable distributions were completed as the final assets sold. A large contribution went to animal welfare organizations. Another supported people leaving abusive homes. One anonymous donation went to an organization where Gemma, one of Bernard's former wives, worked. For years, she had spoken about how difficult it was to keep emergency housing available. She never discovered where the money came from. Bernard enjoyed charitable giving when it made him look generous. An anonymous donation would have seemed pointless to him. That made it feel right. The legal challenges never became serious. Byron's lawyer stopped writing after Vera repeatedly requested evidence. Darlene posted vague messages about betrayal for several weeks before moving on to another argument. Carla removed some of her accusations after being reminded that formal litigation could expose the complete estate records. Simon stayed away from the conflict. Lorna eventually moved into a smaller home that she chose for herself. She returned to part-time work because she missed the routine and the people around her. What she did with her money afterward was her decision. If she helped Kylie, I never asked. Kylie received no house, vehicle, or direct payment from Bernard's estate. Reed received the sports car I had kept out of the sale. I handed him the keys after the transfer was complete. He looked at them, then at the car. No. Yes. This is not mine. It is now. Audrey, I cannot accept this. You listened to me complain about my family for months. That does not equal a sports car. It does according to my calculations. He walked around the car twice before opening the door. Then he asked whether I was serious several more times. I told him the decision was finished. Take the gift. Enjoy it. I kept the vehicle I already owned. Almost a year after Bernard died, the estate was nearly closed. The relatives who warned me that I would regret losing them returned to the same silence they had maintained before the money appeared. The calls stopped. So did the threatening letters and public accusations. For months, I imagined I would feel victorious when everything ended. Mostly, I felt tired. Bernard spent his life believing money proved who mattered. After his death, it revealed who saw family as a relationship and who saw it as a future payment. But the inheritance also gave Mason a chance our father probably never would have offered him directly. That became the part one remembered. Not Darlene's shouting. Not Byron's threats. Not Kylie's message. I remembered Mason staring at the same number because he could not believe anyone had decided he deserved that kind of future. I will never know why Bernard chose me. Perhaps he trusted my judgment. Maybe he knew Mason would avoid the fight. Or perhaps this was his final attempt to create chaos and leave someone else responsible for cleaning it up. Whatever his reason, the people who treated us with basic kindness were protected. The others received what the will required. Some of Bernard's money now feeds abandoned animals, supports emergency housing, and helps people rebuild lives that someone else tried to control. I kept enough to make my own future easier. Mason received enough to transform his. The rest was given a purpose Bernard never would have chosen. Did I carry out my father's final wishes fairly, or did I use the power he left me to settle scores with the family that had already shown me exactly who they were?